You ever seen a storm lose its power the moment the winds die down? That's what happens when a narcissist realizes you don't care anymore. No more reactions, no more fear, no more control, just silence. And that silence, it shakes them more than any scream ever could. When the storm ends, there's no thunder left to hide behind, no lightning to distract from the emptiness, just stillness. And for someone who feeds on chaos, that stillness is unbearable. When a narcissist realizes you no longer care, the first thing that hits them isn't sadness, it's the loss of control. See, for a narcissist, control isn't just something they want. It's the air they breathe, the foundation of how they exist in every relationship, every interaction, every moment of connection. From the very beginning, they observe you like a study. They learn you piece by piece, what makes you smile, what makes you angry, what breaks your heart, what triggers your hope. They take mental notes of your react. They memorize the things that make you open up and the ones that make you close off. Then they build something around that, a system, a psychological playbook designed to manipulate you without you even realizing. They use kindness to pull you in, guilt to keep you close, silence to make you chase, and fear to make you obey. Every word, every pause, every gesture becomes a move in their game. You think it's love, but it's possession dressed up as affection. You think it's connection, but it's control wearing a smile. It's an illusion built on your empathy, on your willingness to see the good in people. And at first it feels powerful because they make you feel seen like never before. You mistake their attention for intimacy, their intensity for depth. But what you don't see is that while you're opening your heart, they're taking notes. They're not loving you, they're learning you. And everything they learn becomes ammunition later when the game begins. For the narcissist, control equals validation. If they can make you react, they feel alive. If they can make you chase, they feel wanted. If they can make you cry, they feel powerful. Every emotion you give them becomes fuel. Every tear, every argument, every explanation feeds their ego and reinforces their illusion that they still matter. Because to a narcissist, your reaction means relevance. As long as you respond, they believe they still have a place in your mind. But the moment that changes, the moment you stop explaining, defending, or trying to make them understand, that's when their world starts to shake. When the silence from your side becomes consistent, calm, and unshaken, the illusion they built starts to crumble. It doesn't just fade away, it collapses violently in their mind. Because to them, silence isn't peace, it's rejection. It's proof that their power has limits. And that's the one truth they can't tolerate. They sense the shift before you even realize it. They're masters of subtle energy, of power dynamics, of emotional rhythm. When you stop reacting, they feel it. The energy that once flowed from you, the tension, the care, the fight suddenly stops. They may act like they don't notice. They'll pretend nothing's changed. They'll joke, they'll smile, they'll talk as if everything is fine, but inside they're spiraling. Why aren't you responding like before? Why don't you look hurt anymore? Why don't you flinch at their words? They replay old conversations. They analyze your stillness, trying to find cracks, trying to see if this calm is real or just another tactic. Because for someone addicted to control, your indifference is terrifying. It's like oxygen slowly running out of the room. At this point, the narcissist will try to regain footing. They'll say things designed to provoke you. Small jabs, sarcastic comments, reminders of things that used to hurt you. They'll use your past against you, twisting your words to spark a reaction. Because they need to see if there's still something left to control, if you still care enough to fight. But when you stay composed, when you remain unfazed, that's when they begin to feel something they rarely admit: weakness. And weakness to a narcissist is unbearable. Their entire identity is built around being untouchable, admired, envied, or feared, but never ignored. Your silence, your peace, your lack of engagement, it's like a mirror they can't look into. It shows them what they don't want to see, that the game is over, that the strings they used to pull no longer work. You see, indifference from someone they once controlled isn't just rejection, it's exposure. It reveals their power was never real, only borrowed. Borrowed from your emotions, from your empathy, from your willingness to care. And when that stops, the illusion ends. They may try to act superior, like they've moved on, like they're unbothered. They might start flaunting new relationships, flashing fake happiness, talking about how at peace they are without you. But that's not peace. it's performance, it's theater, because a narcissist doesn't know how to exist without an audience. And when you stop being theirs, they scramble to find a new one. What they don't understand is that when you stop caring, you've already done the grieving. You've already buried the illusion, mourned the version of them you thought existed, and accepted the truth. What's left is clarity, and clarity is what kills manipulation. And so when a narcissist realizes you no longer care, it's not just the loss of a person that breaks them, it's the loss of their illusion of control. And that loss, that collapse of their emotional empire, is the one storm they can't survive. Because this time, the winds don't just die down, they never rise again. When a narcissist feels control slipping through their hands, something shifts behind their calm exterior. At first, you might not notice it. They'll smile the same, speak the same, even laugh the same way they always have. But underneath that performance, something dark begins to stir, a quiet panic. They've spent so long orchestrating every emotional reaction, every argument, every apology, that when you no longer play your part, their entire script collapses. And suddenly, they're standing in front of a mirror they can't control, forced to face the reflection of their own emptiness. For a narcissist, control is more than a need. That's why, when you stop reacting, they don't just walk away. They fight, not with fists, but with manipulation, with subtle cruelty, with words designed to pull you back into the game. They'll reach out with messages that sound innocent. I was just thinking about you, or I hope you're doing okay. But underneath every word lies a question. Can I still make you feel something? They're not checking on your well-being. They're checking for their reflection in your emotions. If they sense that reflection is gone, they'll shift tactics. The charm that once drew you in returns, softer now, sweeter, almost believable. They'll remind you of old memories, of times that felt safe, of moments that once mattered. They'll say they miss you, that they've changed, that they finally understand. And for a moment, you might feel that old spark of hope, that flicker of the person you once loved. But it's not real, it's bait. Because for them, reconciliation isn't about healing, it's about regaining control. The narcissist's apology isn't an act of humility, it's a strategy. When they say, "I'm sorry," what they really mean is, "I need you back under my influence." Every promise, every tear, every sentimental message is carefully placed to make you doubt yourself, to make you think maybe, just maybe, you overreacted. And that doubt, that hesitation, is all they need to step back into your mind. But when the apology doesn't work, when your silence remains steady and your boundaries unshaken, something changes again. The sweetness fades, the tone sharpens. They start to blame you, accusing you of being cold, selfish, ungrateful. They rewrite the story. Now they're the one who cared too much, who gave too much, who was hurt by your distance. They twist the truth, not because they believe it, but because they need to. It's easier for them to paint you as cruel than to admit they were powerless. To a narcissist, weakness is the ultimate humiliation. Admitting fault feels like surrender. So instead of facing the pain of their own failure, they project it. They make you the villain in a story they control. They tell others you changed, that you became distant, that you gave up too easily. They craft a version of reality where they are still the misunderstood hero. Because as long as they can convince someone, anyone, that they're the victim, they can keep the illusion alive. This stage can be confusing for you, especially if you still care. You might start to question yourself. Maybe you were too harsh. Maybe you could have handled things differently. But that's the trap. That's exactly where they want you. Back in the maze of guilt and justification, searching for an exit that doesn't exist. If you resist that pull, if you stay detached, they begin to unravel further. That's when the facade starts to crack. They might lash out suddenly, saying things meant to cut deep, or they might retreat completely into silence. Either way, it's not peace, it's punishment. Their silence isn't calm reflection. It's a weapon designed to make you doubt your worth, to make you feel invisible, to lure you into breaking the quiet first. Because if you reach out, if you chase even once, they win back a fragment of the control they've lost. But the truth is, when you no longer care, none of their tactics work anymore. Their rage becomes background noise. Their silence becomes space. Their words lose weight because you finally see them for what they are, attempts to reclaim something that's already gone. And for the narcissist, that realization is unbearable. They're left alone, surrounded by the ruins of their own manipulation, wondering how the game slipped away. They can't comprehend that what they've lost isn't just you, it's the power they once held over your emotions. And that's what haunts them most. because the one thing a narcissist can't stand to face is the truth that their control only ever existed as long as you cared. When the narcissist realizes that their old methods no work anymore, that the charm, the guilt, and the subtle manipulation no longer touch you, they enter a phase of quiet desperation. It's not the loud kind, not at first. It's something colder, more calculating, like someone who's just realized their power is slipping through their fingers and will do anything to get it back. They'll begin by observing you closely, carefully. They'll notice how your tone has changed, how your eyes no longer flinch when they speak, how your responses have become neutral, measured, untouchable. It unnerves them. They've always relied on your reactions, on that emotional spark that let them know they still mattered. But now you give them nothing. No anger, no sadness, just calm. And calm to a narcissist is poison. That's when they shift into their next phase, the provocation. It might come quietly, disguised as casual comments or jokes that are meant to sting. They'll bring up your past mistakes, your insecurities, anything they once used as leverage. They're not doing it to communicate, they're doing it to get a rise out of you, to prove to themselves that they still have influence. Because for them, even negative attention is better than none. And if you remain composed, if your silence holds, the provocation grows sharper. The narcissist starts testing boundaries. They may criticize you in front of others, spread subtle rumors, or twist private details into half-truths. Their goal isn't just to hurt you, it's to pull you back into the emotional arena, to make you defend yourself, because defense means engagement, and engagement means control. But this time, something is different. You don't play the game, you let the words pass through you. You stop explaining, stop justifying, stop trying to prove your worth to someone who was never listening in the first place. And that's when something inside them breaks. Because without your reaction, they lose their reflection. They can no longer define themselves through your emotions, and that emptiness becomes unbearable. They'll try to hide it behind arrogance, pretending they're fine, even triumphant. You might hear them boasting about how much better their life is now, how they've found peace, success, or even new love, but it's all performance, a desperate attempt to rewrite the story so they don't have to face what's really happening. Because deep down, they know. They know that the silence they mocked is the same silence that now surrounds them. This is where their mask begins to crack. You'll notice inconsistencies, sudden mood swings, flashes of anger, followed by false calm. It's the mind of someone who's losing control of their own narrative. They might lash out one day, then act overly kind the next, testing which version of themselves will bring you back. But it doesn't work anymore. You've seen behind the mask, and once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And here's the truth they can't face. They were never in control of you. They were in control of your reactions, your empathy, your desire to make things right. That's what fed them. That's what gave them power. But now that power is gone, and without it, they're left with the one thing they've spent their entire lives running from: themselves. This stage is often the most dangerous, not because they can harm you physically, but because they'll try to rewrite your reality. They'll twist stories to make you doubt your memory, make you question your own strength, make you wonder if maybe you're being too harsh. But the truth is, they're projecting. Every accusation they throw at you is a confession in disguise. When they call you selfish, they're revealing their fear of being forgotten. When they call you cold, they're describing their own emptiness. The narcissist's greatest fear isn't loneliness, it's irrelevance, and your indifference forces them to confront that fear in real time. They can't stand that you've stopped caring, that you've moved on without needing closure, without needing to explain. It terrifies them because it means you're no longer orbiting around their world. You've built your own. And that's what makes this part so powerful for you. For the first time, you begin to see the truth clearly. Their cruelty wasn't about you. Their manipulation wasn't personal. It was survival for them. Every lie, every emotional game was a way to avoid facing the emptiness inside themselves. And now that you're gone, that emptiness echoes louder than ever. They'll try to fill it with attention, with new relationships, with chaos, but none of it lasts. Because what they've lost isn't just control over you. It's the mirror that reflected the illusion they built of themselves. You were never the source of their power. You were the proof of it. And now that proof is gone. You begin to feel peace, not because you've won, but because you finally understand. You realize that silence was never weakness. It was your strength taking form. And in that silence, the narcissist faces something they've never known before: the limits of their control. They can't shout loud enough to break it. They can't love bomb their way through it. They can't manipulate what no longer reacts. And as they stand there, surrounded by the echoes of their own performance, they begin to understand the one truth they've spent their life denying. Power built on control is an illusion, and illusions always fade in the light of indifference. That's what destroys them. Not your anger, not your revenge, but your peace. Because peace means the storm has finally lost its power. When the narcissist finally realizes that nothing they do reaches you anymore, they begin to face something they've spent their entire life avoiding: the collapse of their own image. What once defined them, their confidence, their charm, their ability to control a room, suddenly starts to feel like a mask that doesn't fit. It's as if the performance that used to convince everyone, including themselves, has started to fall apart under the weight of your silence. At first, they'll deny it. Denial is their armor. They'll tell themselves you're pretending, that you're trying to make them jealous, that this calm you carry is just a new form of manipulation. They'll convince themselves that sooner or later you'll break. Because in their world, everyone breaks. Everyone bends to their will eventually. That's the story they've always believed, the one that made them feel safe. But as the days pass, as you stay distant and unwavering, the cracks begin to show. They start to panic, not visibly, but internally. Their thoughts turn restless, looping around the same question over and over: how did I lose control? For someone whose entire identity depends on being in charge of other people's emotions, losing that grip feels like suffocation. You've taken away the one thing that made them feel powerful, your attention. And without it, they feel small. They might begin to reach for replacements, new friends, new relationships, new distractions. They'll seek admiration anywhere they can find it. Social media becomes their stage. Posts filled with forced happiness, empty achievements, exaggerated declarations of how free they are now. But look closer, and you'll see the cracks between their words. That's not joy. It's fear disguised as confidence. Because the louder they claim to have moved on, the more it reveals that they haven't. Their need for attention is endless, but what they truly crave is control. And when control is gone, their mind becomes a battlefield. The narcissist starts rewriting the story in their head. In their version, they weren't the one abandoned, they were the one who walked away. They weren't manipulative, you were ungrateful. They weren't cruel, you were too sensitive. Every lie they tell themselves becomes a shield against the truth, because the truth is unbearable. They were never in control of you. They only controlled your reaction. That distinction might seem small, but to them, it's everything. When you stop reacting, it's like turning off a spotlight that's been shining on them for years. Suddenly they're left in the dark, forced to see what's been hiding in the shadows all along. The emptiness they've built their identity around. That's why they need people like you, empathetic, giving, emotionally intelligent people who feel deeply, because your light made them feel real. Your validation made their reflection seem whole. And now that you've taken that light away, they're lost. You'll notice this in subtle ways. Their sudden changes in mood, their erratic behavior, their desperate attempts to get your attention without seeming desperate. They might reach out with something familiar, a memory, a phrase, a song, something that used to connect you. They'll test the waters, trying to see if they can still get through. But this time it doesn't work. You've seen the pattern too many times. You know what's real and what's not. For you, the silence has become strength. For them, it's torment. They can't comprehend how peace feels to someone who used to be in their control. To them, peace looks like punishment. They interpret your distance as cruelty because they can't see beyond their own reflection. Narcissists don't understand love in the way most people do. To them, love is about possession, not connection. And when that possession slips away, they grieve not for you, but for the loss of control. It's a strange kind of grief, one that doesn't lead to healing, but to obsession. They start thinking of ways to rewrite the ending, to draw you back into conversation, to get a reaction, to prove they still exist in your emotional world. They'll create scenarios to make you jealous, to make you angry, to make you remember. Because in their mind, even hatred is better than indifference. Hatred means you still care. But when you don't respond, when you remain still and calm, something inside them begins to collapse. The narcissist's ego is built like a fragile sculpture, impressive from a distance, but hollow underneath. And now, piece by piece, it begins to crumble. They start to feel what they've made others feel for so long: irrelevance. That's their greatest fear, and now it's staring them in the face. They'll tell themselves they don't care, that they're above it, that you were never that important. But even as they say it, they can't stop watching you. They'll keep tabs from afar, through mutual friends, through social media, through small glimpses of your life. They'll analyze every detail, looking for signs that you still think about them. Because if they can believe that you do, then in their mind, the game isn't over, but it is. What they fail to understand is that indifference is not hatred, it's liberation. It's the quiet power that comes from finally seeing the truth clearly. You're not trying to hurt them. You're not trying to win, you've simply outgrown the illusion. And that's what breaks them the most. The realization that their power didn't fade because you fought back. It faded because you stopped playing. That's something they never expected. Narcissists build their lives around conflict, around reaction. They don't know how to exist in peace. And when they're faced with someone who no longer needs to fight, who no longer seeks their approval or attention, they're left standing in the wreckage of their own manipulation, looking for someone else to blame. But there's no one left to blame, there's just silence. The same silence they once used to control you has now become their punishment, because now it's turned against them, a mirror reflecting everything they refused to face. The truth is simple but devastating. They never had real power. They only had the illusion of it, borrowed from your willingness to care. And once you took that back, you didn't just free yourself, you shattered the foundation of everything they built. When a narcissist realizes that no amount of manipulation, charm, or performance can draw you back in, their world begins to fold in on itself. It doesn't happen all at once. It's a slow unraveling, a quiet decay, masked by forced confidence and counterfeit peace. On the surface, they might look composed, even triumphant, as if your absence doesn't touch them. But underneath that facade, a storm brews. A storm built not of anger, but of confusion, shame, and something they never learned to handle, loss. For the first time, the narcissist faces silence that doesn't answer back. There are no explanations to twist, no emotions to feed on, no reactions to validate their sense of power. You've cut the invisible cord that once connected them to your energy, and that absence feels like starvation. Narcissists don't process emotions like most people do. They don't reflect and grow. They redirect and distort. So rather than sitting with the pain of losing control, they externalize it. They blame you. They tell themselves stories that protect their ego. You were cold, ungrateful, disloyal. They create new versions of events where they're the victim, because that's the only way they can survive the humiliation of your indifference. But the more they try to rewrite reality, the more cracks appear in their mask. Without someone to project onto, their inner chaos has nowhere to go. They start turning it inward. The arrogance that once held them upright begins to tremble, and behind closed doors, they spiral. They may become obsessive, checking your social media, asking about you through mutual acquaintances, dissecting your every move. It's not love that drives this behavior. It's the addiction to control, the desperate need to know that they still matter in your world. Your peace becomes a challenge to their illusion, a proof that they've lost something they believed was theirs forever. When the narcissist can't reach you emotionally, they'll often turn to substitutes. They'll seek new people to fill the space you left behind. Someone who will react, someone who will believe their stories, someone who will reflect the power they've lost. These new connections are never about affection or compatibility. They're about validation. They want to prove to themselves and others that they can still be desired, admired, worshipped. But what they don't realize is that every new supply is a reminder of the emptiness they carry. Because no matter how many people they charm, they can't replicate the control they once had over you. You were the mirror that reflected their illusion, and now that it's shattered, every reflection looks distorted. Meanwhile, you begin to notice the shift, not in them, but in yourself. The longer you stay silent, the more distance you gain, the clearer things become. You start to see patterns that were once invisible. The way they used charm as a weapon, the way they built chaos just to feel significant, the way they made you doubt your own sanity to protect their lies. It's unsettling at first, realizing how deeply they infiltrated your mind, how skillfully they turned your empathy into their leverage. But as you see it clearly, something remarkable happens. Clarity turns into power. You stop personalizing their behavior. You stop wondering, why me, and start understanding how they work. That understanding changes everything, because once you see the mechanics behind their manipulation, it loses its magic. The words that once pierced your heart now sound hollow. The gestures that once melted, you now feel rehearsed. You begin to realize that What you mistook for love was always dependency, disguised as devotion. The spell breaks, and when it does, you understand why your silence hurts them so much. It's not just the absence of your voice, it's the proof that you see them for who they really are. The narcissist, however, can't tolerate being seen. Their entire existence depends on the mask they've crafted, the perfect partner, the hero, the misunderstood soul. When that mask slips and someone truly sees behind it, it feels like exposure, like standing naked in front of a truth they can't bear. Your indifference is that exposure. It tells them wordlessly, I know who you are, and I no longer care. For someone who lives for control, that's not just rejection, it's erasure. In their desperation, they might attempt one last act, reconstruction. They'll try to rebuild themselves through imitation. You'll notice they start adopting your habits, your words, even your values. It's not a tribute, it's survival. They're trying to absorb pieces of you to regain what they lost. But imitation is hollow when the essence is gone. They can copy your calm, but not your peace. They can mimic your detachment, but not your healing. And so they keep chasing, performing, pretending, hoping something will make them feel whole again, but nothing does. Because what they lost wasn't just a relationship, it was the reflection of power they saw through your eyes. That reflection made them feel real, and without it, they're forced to confront the truth they've been running from their whole life, that there is no substance beneath the performance, no depth beneath the illusion. And as you continue forward, quietly, peacefully, without looking back, they're left standing in the ruins of their own creation. The game is over, but they're still trying to play, unaware that the board has been cleared. They'll search for new players, new targets, new sources of attention, and each one will end the same way. Because the problem was never the people they lost, it was the emptiness they refused to face. In the end, their collapse is not a dramatic explosion, it's a slow fading. The voice that once demanded attention becomes an echo. The presence that once dominated your life becomes background noise. And you, the one they tried so hard to control, becomes something they can't touch anymore. A symbol of everything they wanted but could never truly possess. Peace, self-worth, and freedom. That's the quiet victory. Not revenge, not triumph, just peace. The kind that doesn't need to prove anything. The kind that ends the story without a final word. When the narcissist realizes the finality of your silence, something inside them fractures. It's not loud, not visible, but deep, like a crack running through glass, invisible until it finally shatters. Up to that moment, part of them still believed this was temporary, that your calm was just another phase in the cycle they've mastered so many times before. They've always counted on that rhythm, the tension, the argument, the reconciliation, the reset. They've always believed that no matter how far you walked, they could pull you back. But this time, the rhythm breaks. The silence stretches longer than they expected. The messages go unanswered. The bait gets no response. And slowly, reality begins to set in. You're gone, and there's nothing they can do to bring you back. That realization doesn't lead them to reflection. It leads them to collapse. Because narcissists don't know how to exist outside of control. It's not about love or connection, it's about identity. They've built their entire sense of self around how others respond to them, how they can make people feel, how they can twist emotions to shape reality. But when you stop reacting, you take away that mirror. You take away the reflection that made them feel real. And what's left is something they've spent their whole life trying to escape: emptiness. That emptiness terrifies them. It's not the quiet of peace, it's the quiet of nothingness. A void where their sense of superiority, charm, and confidence all vanish the moment there's no one left to perform for. So they scramble to fill it. They chase distractions, new people, new validation, new chaos, anything to drown out the silence that your absence has created. They'll post pictures that scream happiness, speak words that sound rehearsed, surround themselves with noise just to feel alive again. But deep down, they know none of it replaces what they lost. Because it wasn't you they needed, it was your reaction. Your attention, even when it came in anger or pain, was a kind of proof. Proof that they mattered, proof that they still had influence. And when that proof disappears, they begin to lose their grip on their own narrative. They start questioning what they've never questioned before. Not in an introspective way, but in a desperate one. Why doesn't it work anymore? Why aren't they reacting? What did I lose? They'll look for answers outside themselves because looking inward has never been an option. Introspection is dangerous for them. It exposes too much. It forces them to confront the truth that their power was built on illusion. In this stage, many narcissists retreat into isolation, but not the healing kind. It's an isolation filled with noise, internal noise, regret mixed with pride, rage mixed with denial. They can't admit defeat, but they can't escape it either. They might try to rewrite the story again, painting themselves as the one who let go, the one who chose peace, the one who was wronged. But no matter how many times they repeat the story, it doesn't feel the same. The lie doesn't comfort them anymore. The performance no longer convinces even themselves. And so begins the search for new supply. It happens quickly, almost frantically. They look for someone else to fill the space you left behind, someone who will listen, admire, react. It's not a choice made from love, but from fear. They can't stand the stillness of not being reflected. The new person often has no idea what's coming. They'll see the same charm, the same confidence, the same intensity that once drew you in. They'll believe they've met someone captivating, someone full of depth and charisma. But behind that charm is desperation. It's the act of someone trying to rebuild their identity through another person's gaze. You might see them flaunt this new connection. Public smiles, exaggerated affection, forced displays of happiness. It's a performance aimed at you, at themselves, at anyone who might be watching. They want to prove that they've moved on, that they're still powerful, still desired. But there's something hollow in their eyes, something forced in their laughter. Because no matter how hard they try, they can't replicate the same dynamic they had with you. Not because you were replaceable, but because you were the one who stopped playing. And that's what haunts them. They can replace faces, but not control. They can find new admiration, but not the illusion of dominance they once had over you. That specific kind of power, the emotional hold they crafted so carefully, died the moment you chose peace over engagement. That's what they can't accept. Because if you could walk away and not look back, it means the control they thought was absolute was never real at all. For you, this is the moment clarity turns into freedom. You begin to see how fragile their power always was, how dependent it was on your energy, your empathy, your willingness to fix what they broke. You realize that the silence they now drown in is the same silence you once feared. But for you, it's become sanctuary. For them, it's a mirror that shows the truth they've always avoided. Over time, their anger fades into something else, obsession, not with love, not even with you, but with the idea of what they lost. They'll check in from afar, testing if the door is still open, maybe a message, a casual comment, a sudden apology out of nowhere. It's not remorse, it's curiosity. They want to know if they still have access, if the strings still move when they pull, but you've learned, you've seen through it. The silence remains, and in that silence, you've taken back every piece of yourself they once tried to own. Meanwhile, they begin to disappear, not physically, but emotionally, psychologically. Their performance continues, but the audience is gone. And without an audience, even the grandest act loses meaning. That's the part they never understood. Power doesn't come from control. It comes from authenticity, from the ability to stand still without needing applause, something they've never learned to do. And so the narcissist fades, not with a grand exit, not with drama, but quietly, like a storm that once seemed unstoppable, now reduced to a whisper of wind. You don't celebrate their fall. You don't need to. Because the real victory isn't in their collapse, it's in your calm. The calm that once scared them, the calm that ended the cycle, the calm that became your freedom. You move forward. They remain chasing echoes. There comes a moment when the narcissist stops pretending they don't care and begins to realize that the silence they once dismissed has become permanent. At first, they tell themselves it's nothing, that you'll come around, that everyone always does. But days stretch into weeks, and your absence stops being an act of defiance and becomes something more unsettling, indifference. That's when the panic sets in. Quiet, creeping panic. It's not about missing you as a person. It's about missing the reflection they once saw in you, the mirror that confirmed their importance. Now that mirror is gone, and all they're left with is the faint echo of their own voice. They begin to feel it in moments they don't expect. A song you once played, a phrase you once said. But it's not nostalgia, it's irritation. It's the reminder that there was a time when they mattered to someone who no longer even thinks of them. That thought burns more than rejection. Rejection, they can twist into pride. Indifference is the one thing they can't reframe, because indifference is final. They'll try to fight it the only way they know how, through control. They may reappear suddenly, not out of love, but strategy. A message that sounds harmless. Hey, how have you been? Or maybe a photo shared publicly, calculated to get your attention. They want to see if you'll react, if you'll break your silence, if somewhere inside you there's still a trace of the person who used to defend them, comfort them, fight for them. To the narcissist, silence isn't peace, it's rejection with no opening for redemption, and they can't live with that. If you don't respond, they switch tactics. They'll start reaching through the edges of your world, mutual friends, family, even social media. They might hint that they miss you or that they've changed, hoping someone carries the message back to you. It's a performance designed to remind you of their existence without showing vulnerability, because they don't want reconciliation, they want reassurance. They want proof that they can still cause movement in your world. But you're different now. You've seen behind the curtain. You've learned to read the silence not as emptiness, but as strength. You don't need closure because you already gave it to yourself. And that calm, that composure confuses them more than anger ever could. In their mind, you should still be reacting, still explaining, still trying to fix what broke. But instead, you're living quietly, peacefully, untethered to their chaos. And that terrifies them. And so they push harder. They'll test every boundary you've built. Maybe they show up where they know you'll be. Maybe they send a message pretending it was meant for someone else. These small, deliberate acts aren't random. They're fishing lines cast into still waters. They want any sign that you still care. Because if you react, even with annoyance, they win. They can tell themselves you're not really gone, that there's still a string connecting you. But when you don't react at all, when your silence remains steady and your life moves on, that's when the weight of their loss begins to sink in. And it's not the loss of love that breaks them. It's the loss of power, because power is their oxygen, and your indifference cuts off their supply. Without control, without validation, they're left alone with the one person they can't manipulate, themselves. That's when the mask begins to slip completely. They may start to crumble in ways the world doesn't see. Behind closed doors, they question their worth. They try to rebuild their image through distractions, new people, new goals, new possessions, but nothing fills the void. Because what they've lost isn't something that can be replaced. It's something that exposed their truth. Your detachment showed them what they are without influence, small, fragile, dependent on attention to feel real. And yet they'll keep chasing the illusion. They'll find someone new, someone unsuspecting, someone kind enough to mistake intensity for depth. The cycle begins again, the charm, the admiration, the control. But even as they repeat their old patterns, a shadow lingers, because deep down, they know. They know that somewhere there's someone who saw them completely and walked away without hate, without tears, without a word. That memory haunts them more than anything else. It's the proof that their greatest fear came true. They can be forgotten. For you, this stage marks a turning point. You no longer see them as a force to be reckoned with. You see them as human, flawed, frightened, and empty. The fear they used to inspire in you dissolves, replaced by understanding. Not pity, not forgiveness, but awareness. You realize that all their control was borrowed power. All their confidence a mask built on fragile ground. And that understanding frees you. Because once you see the narcissist clearly, they lose all mystery. They lose the ability to haunt you, to make you question your worth. You begin to understand that every manipulation, every lie, every twisted word was never a reflection of your weakness. It was a projection of their fear. Their need to dominate was born from the terror of being unseen, unloved, irrelevant. And your silence is the proof that they no longer control either your emotions or your perception. They'll never admit it, but your calm will follow them. Every new connection, every performance, every attempt to rebuild what they lost will be haunted by the memory of the one person who didn't bend, because you didn't leave to punish them. You left to protect your peace, and that's something they'll never understand. To them, peace looks like surrender. but to you, it became freedom. The narcissist will keep searching, always chasing the next reflection, the next person who might fill the emptiness they refuse to face. But every time the cycle repeats, it gets weaker. Every time the illusion fades faster. Because once they've seen what indifference truly looks like, once they've faced the silence that doesn't break, it becomes harder to pretend they still have power. And maybe one day they'll stop running. Maybe they'll finally look at the wreckage and see the pattern for what it is. But most never do. They move from person to person, moment to moment, trying to outrun the truth that your silence already revealed. Power built on manipulation always collapses. And when it does, there's nothing left but the echo of a storm that's finally lost its wind.